Good evening, everyone. This is Dolores Cannon with the Metaphysical Hour. And we are live tonight. This is June the 3rd, right. Because I have to think. Because we've been giving a date now, so they'll know it's a live show and not one from the archives. And as I said before, all our speakers up until this is the last one now. All our guests are all going to be our speakers for our conference next week. And it's not very long now.
No, we're in the countdown phase.
Yeah, Julia's here. She's back from London. She was in London last week.
Yeah, I travel too. Yay!
She wanted to have a vacation away from me and away from the office, away from everybody. So she went to London by herself. So she's back tonight. She's going to be helping with this. But I want to remind everybody, our conference is next weekend. It's the 10th through the 12th in Rogers, Arkansas. It's our 6th one. It's the Transformation Conference, and we've got wonderful, wonderful speakers. Mm-hmm. And it's lining up that we're going to have a good one again.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Always is.
It gets bigger every year, and the people are all getting excited about it.
Yeah.
So our guest tonight is going to be one of our keynotes for next week.
Right.
Okay, before we get going, let me give out the toll-free number in case anyone wants to call in and ask any questions tonight. It's 1-888-815-9756. 888-815-9756. And if you call in, let's try to keep it questions for the guest or to the subject matter instead of going off on my things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because he's going to have enough to talk about.
Absolutely. This is a super special guest.
So he's going to have plenty of things to talk about. So if anybody calls in, let's ask him the questions. Okay, we have tonight, and Giorgio, I have a little problem with your last name. I want to try to pronounce it correctly. But his is Giorgio Tsoukalos.
You pronounce it very well. That's perfect. Absolutely.
Okay, I just said leave the T off, and I guess we're okay.
Yes.
Okay, and you're out in California, aren't you?
Yes, I am, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and, a day of the gods. Absolutely wonderful.
Okay. I want to tell everyone, last week, I had Jack Churchward on. Giorgio, he is the one he's the great-grandson of James Churchward. Mm-hmm. And he has brought back his great-grandfather's, books on the land of Mu. We had him on last week, and the phone on my end was acting up. And the people called in, they said they could hear it fine, but we were having problems. So I found out what it was. We had these terrible storms and tornadoes, and we had such bad lightning that it fried all of my other phones. The phone I was using I thought was okay, but apparently it had scrambled its little brain too. So now I'm on a new phone, and I'm hoping it's going to be okay. But I wanted to know that's what was wrong last week when we kept trying to say I couldn't understand it. We had our little gremlins on the line that time. Okay, but Giorgio, you've been traveling, or you've been home for a while?
I'm actually home at the moment because we are in the middle of filming Season 3 of Ancient Aliens, so I have to be on call, and I'm actually, I am traveling with the production and, going up to L.A. and filming interviews and things like that, and I'm also the consulting producer of the program, so it's a very busy time right now in getting everything lined up for Season 3, and it's very exciting to see that that show has been so well received across the country.
Well, that's what we heard. They said we got you for the conference just in time because all of this broke through right after that. That
right,
we didn't know if you'd be available after all this began happening.
Congratulations on the success of the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, it shows that, I've been talking about these things for, 25 years, and everybody was kind of, skeptics and everything saying it wasn't true, but now there is an interest there, and it's growing. People do believe in it. I think it's beginning to get through to people anyway.
Yeah, it's certainly, I would consider it a change in consciousness where, like you said, about 25 years ago, these ideas, there were always, the hardcore enthusiasts that were always into asking questions, but by and large, these topics were pretty much taboo to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And now I think that, especially, with 2012 and approaching, and of course the Internet has a huge impact on this entire discussion because anyone can now pretty much participate in this work. And, see, what you and I, what we do is we just ask questions. And if those questions are uncomfortable, who cares? Uncomfortable questions are always good.
Yeah, and we're always going to run into skeptics. And I say there's no use in trying to convince a skeptic anyway.
Oh, no, of course not.
And
we
just
here's the problem that
you present it. If they accept it, okay. If they don't, it's up to them.
Right. And, the skeptics, it's very interesting that, oftentimes, I mean, if you look at their arguments that they've been bringing forth over the last 20 to 30 years, they're always the same arguments. And, people like me, for example, we never argue or we never have said that our ancestors, that they did not know how to cut stone, because obviously they knew how to cut stone. There is no question about that. However, I'm not interested to find out how they cut limestone or how they cut corals and things like this, which means that those were very soft stones. I'm interested in how they cut granite and andesite and diorite and really hard stones. And that's what I'm interested in, because there the debunkers or the archaeologists are saying, well, all this was done with chicken bones and with obsidian, and that is simply untrue.
Yeah, and I know you've been to Cusco and Machu Picchu too, haven't you?
Yes, multiple times, absolutely.
And look how the stones are there in Cusco. They're just molded into shape, and you can't even put a credit card between the stones.
Oh,
they're so close together. Now, how could that happen with chicken bones and stuff?
Exactly, and let alone that some of these stones are, over 500, 600, 700 metric tons, and we can go anywhere in the world, and there are stones that are so heavy that we today would have a very great difficulty to move them with our modern-day equipment. And that's the stuff that I'm interested in. I am not,
I've heard they said nothing we have today, our cranes or anything, they would buckle. There's no way they could lift some of these stones.
Yeah, so that's the stuff that, I'm after. And, when we can't replicate something today that allegedly our ancestors did with strings and with chicken bones, that's what I'm interested in.
Well, I'm into the theory. I think we had a caller, because when it beeps, there's a caller, but I just wanted to make this statement. When I'm finding out my work, a lot of it was done with the mind, the raising of the stones and the molding of the stones.
Yeah, no, that is definitely, never say never, in my opinion. I would never, ever discount an idea or a theory because, guess what? We just don't know. And so to say, because...
Well, they said it was done with sound, too, and so there's a lot of different theories that they haven't come up with.
Mm-hmm. No, and there are ancient stories, especially in ancient Egypt, where some of these stones were moved as if by magic. And so my question is, well, what was this magic? And in my opinion, representing the ancient alien theory or the classic ancient alien theory, I think that magic was nothing else but misunderstood technology. And Arthur C. Clarke, he said it best a long time ago when he's famous for that one quote when he said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that pretty much sums up the ancient astronaut theory. Yeah,
because, we're on the same wavelength, because I believe in it, because I've been researching this, too, for, a long time. And I do believe they were involved. I don't care what the skeptics say. There's too much evidence that this couldn't have been done by people. Is there a caller online? Okay, because when it makes a beep...
Hello?
Hello. My name is Anton, and I'm from the Midwest. I'd like to say thank you for this program and such a distinguished guest, the opportunity to hear you folks discuss these topics. I'd like to begin by expressing my thanks and acknowledgement for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Usually people wait till later in the show to call in, so that's why I wasn't prepared for a caller this early. Do you have a question for Giorgio?
I do. Giorgio, in just the last 4 to 6 weeks alone, NASA has been making a series of very, almost sensationalistic announcements regarding our understanding of not just our own satellite, the moon, but also other bodies within our own solar system. And in fact, the one particular announcement I am most intrigued by was made on May 18th regarding free-floating planets that are referred to as rogue planets. Are you familiar with some of these announcements that it seems have been
yes,
escalating?
Those rogue planets, they travel through our galaxy at incredible speeds. And, the question that I have is, are these really just planets, or could they perhaps be some type of ships? And the answer to that is absolutely we have no idea. But, the existence of these bodies that are traveling at a high velocity have been confirmed by NASA, and I'm following that story very closely.
Well, that's what I've heard, that some of these ships are as big as a planet. We know they're as big as cities. Why couldn't they be that big?
Right, exactly.
Well, if I may just make a comment, and then also I guess I'd be curious to hear, Giorgio, how you might see any potential associations between these types of announcements that are being made, which really, in their nature, are quite revolutionary. I think you can both appreciate that what NASA has wanted us to believe for quite some length of time is that our moon is bone dry. The basic building block of life, or the potential for life on any planet, is water and carbon as we know it. And yet in the last 4 to 6 weeks, these different announcements have, it's been a sea change. And if I can quote from this announcement regarding rogue planets, although free-floating planets have been predicted, they have finally been detected. They go on to say the team estimates there are about twice as many of them as stars, and the very following sentence says, in addition, these worlds are thought to be at least as common as planets that orbit stars. And further, the same announcement goes on to discuss that they might very well be able to support life, despite the fact that they are not associated with a solar orbit. They don't have a sun, but they can sustain life because of the construction of each planet's electromagnetosphere, it's the composition of its layers of its atmosphere, and then its internal heat source. And then not to mention possibly that some of these are brown stars. So I thank you both very much for your time, and I'd be very curious to hear if you can think of some associations that may tie to the ancient astronaut theory, and then what some of these things might mean for us in the future. So thank you.
But I think it's important that NASA is making those announcements. They used to keep it secret. Now they're letting people know these things. You go ahead, Giorgio, and tell them what you think.
Right. No, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And to me, it's just, in my opinion, science and disclosure is a malleable thing. It's an ongoing process. It's something that, it is a process. It's not something that happens overnight. And so is this part of disclosure? Absolutely. And see, one of the biggest questions, or the most frequent questions I get asked at conferences and things like this is that, hey, Giorgio, when do you think disclosure will happen? And my answer is very simple, that disclosure it will never happen in a press conference. It will never happen, with the president coming on camera and saying, guys, we're not alone.
I agree with you.
It is an ongoing process, and we are in the middle of disclosure. See, all these stories that NASA is releasing, or all those movies that are coming out and TV shows having to do with aliens or addressing the extraterrestrial question, and all the stuff that's going on in genetics in this day and age, I mean, those are all things that are in direct corroboration with the ancient astronaut theory. And so we are in the process of learning this knowledge that not only are we not alone in the universe, but guess what? We've never been alone, and they've been here since before the beginning of time.
Hooray. That's what I've always thought, and I'm really glad you agree.
Yep.
But, the average person, it kind of goes against their belief. But you have to have an open mind because there's so much we don't really know.
But a good point there is, like what you're saying, in the movies and the TV industry, things like that, it's such a subtle way to get people used to it and to open up to the idea of it and be okay with it, you know. So
and to me, I mean, it's the universe is such, or even just our galaxy alone is such a vast and huge place. To think that we're the only ones out there in this day and age, I mean, that would be a very sad statement of affairs. It would be a very sad statement or an insult, actually, in the face of God, because that basically means that she didn't do any better than us, because we're
is this as good as he could do? You know, we know he could do better than this.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. But I know I refer to you as the modern-day Indiana Jones because you go all over the world tracking down these mysteries, don't you?
Well, that's one thing I love to do, and that is, I publish a magazine together with my colleague, dear friend of mine. I'm sure many of our listeners have heard of him, Eric von Daniken, who wrote Chariots of the Gods in the 1970s and many, many books ever since. And the one thing that we do in the magazine that we publish, Legendary Times, is that none of the stuff that we report about has been given to us, without any type of references, or where we don't go out there and check up on the story ourselves. Or, we actually write the story and things like this. So none of these ideas or the articles that we publish, you yourself, the reader, can either go to the library and look up the text or on the Internet, or you can actually travel to all those places and see the stones, see the artifacts, go to the museum, look at the objects, and therein lies the big difference. Because a lot of times in this day and age, Photoshop and inventing stories is unfortunately now part of the game, and it's a huge disservice to all the research
like the
that we're doing.
Inquirer, they're always making up stories, and they can reproduce a lot of photos with the Internet that looks very genuine. But tell them about your magazine. It's the Legendary Times, isn't it?
Yes, it's Legendary Times. And it's the only magazine in the world, the only publication that deals exclusively with the ancient astronaut theory. So basically, it's the official magazine of the Archaeology, Astronautics, and SETI Research Association, of which I'm the chairman of. And we started publishing back in 1998. So we've been doing this for a very long time now, and
I was going to ask you, when did you start, and how did you start? What made you decide to publish a magazine like this?
Well, pretty much being at the right place at the right moment, because back in the 1970s, when Eric von Daniken came out with Chariots of the Gods. There was an American attorney here in the United States who started a society called the Ancient Astronaut Society. And then in the mid-90s, 96 and 97, he decided that he no longer wanted to continue. He wanted to retire. And at that point, I was already a good friend of Eric von Daniken's, and they essentially had a magazine in the German-speaking language called Ancient Skies, and that Ancient Skies now was on the precipice of disappearing forever in the English-speaking world. But in the German-speaking world, Eric von Daniken decided to essentially start a new organization, rename the magazine, and continue like as if nothing happened. However, in the States, or in the English-speaking world, there was nobody around, or they did, that wanted to take it over. So Eric essentially approached me after I had expressed interest in potentially doing this, and here we are in 2011, about 55 issues later. We're publishing Legendary Times, and so it's basically it was an organization that we founded in 1998, and here we are.
And I know that's not easy with all your traveling and everything to keep a magazine out there and keep it going.
Well, and that is, I mean, yes, that is true, because not many people realize that, this is, we don't have a staff of 20 people. I mean, this is a skeleton crew
we're the same.
1.5 to 2 people. And that's
totally understand.
With our publishing company, we know what you're going through. That's why I think it's admirable that you're doing it in addition to all your traveling, and now you've got the TV show.
You're one busy
dude.
Yes,
and those shows also, they don't film themselves.
That's true. You tell us about that.
It's a pretty crazy schedule here for sure.
People always say that we have it made, we got an easy life, traveling and doing all these things, and they don't realize it's a lot of work goes into this.
Absolutely. It really is, and I wouldn't change it for the world,
right.
But, gosh, I know I could have chosen another career path, and it would have been easier. That's all I have to say.
You would have switched to this anyway, so.
Well, that's what I tell people. I'd be bored sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I don't twiddle very good.
That makes two of us, absolutely.
Okay. I've got such a curiosity. I want to know everything, and I think you're of the same kind, aren't you?
Well, and the wonderful thing is that, especially my curiosity was instilled upon by my grandmother, because growing up in our household, I grew up in a very Christian or, Catholic household, went to church every Thursday and every Sunday and things like that. And, but still, despite that, whenever my grandma and my grandparents would be over, we would always talk about Atlantis and about aliens and the supernatural and things like this. So, it's been at a very early age that I was exposed to these ideas. And, so I think that we're all kind of a product of our upbringing. And so,
definitely.
I totally blame my grandmother and my parents for all of this. So.
But you wouldn't have been happy going the other way, just accepting what you were told and not asking questions.
Oh no, I remember asking questions in elementary school in religion class. At one point, I was thrown out of the class. I was always one to ask questions for sure ever since as a little boy.
There's another caller. It's the same with me because I was teaching Sunday school. I felt it was safe to teach the kids Sunday school because I wasn't going to be, asking a lot of questions. But I couldn't sit in the church and listen to the preacher. I had too many questions. I wanted to raise my hand and say, but maybe it's this. So I finally quit the church. I couldn't take it. So we're both rebels that way.
I love it.
We want to think for ourselves. Okay, there is another caller on the line because I heard the beep. Okay, is anybody there?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. I want to say that I'm fans of both of you. I adore George Tsoukalos, and I adore you, Dolores. And I would like to ask, I have an idea that George could use for his show, something that he might want to investigate. And that's on the hieroglyphs in Egypt, they have cat people, Kazmid, and Bast. And they have, which are supposed to be lion gods, and then they have in South Africa, an ancient queen named Numbi, who also worship the cat people. So I thought that was good, and they also call them Srinanga in India. So that's something good for investigation and good for a show. If he would, George, if you would investigate the cat people of Egypt, the Egyptian gods, which were really people.
Have you already investigated the cat people in Egypt?
No, I have not. But I will definitely take it into consideration and investigate a little bit closer, because it's amazing how many times someone approaches me with something completely new. I mean, I always knew that the cat was one of the most sacred animals in ancient Egypt.
Yes.
But that there was cat people. I mean, look, there were, of course, If you look at many of the ancient carvings and paintings and on papyrus that we can find in ancient Egypt, you can totally see that they were half man, half animal creatures. And some of these creatures do have cat heads or lion heads, or there's a creature that has the body of a crocodile and the head of a lion and things like this. So there's definitely something there. But that there is an actual story of cat people in ancient Egypt, that's definitely something I've never heard before, and I will totally look into it, and I thank you very much for the tip.
Well, Giorgio, in one of my Convoluted Universe books, I have a whole chapter on that, where we discover the cat people. But, I do my work in a different way. I investigate differently than you do.
Yes.
But it was someone who went back to a lifetime in ancient Egypt, and they were the cat people. They looked human, but they did revere the cats, and they used the cats for messengers, and, they could communicate with them. And they said that the Sphinx was supposed to, that's why it has a different head. It was supposed to have the head of a cat. And it was because it was supposed to have been after the women. It was supposed to be a woman. I think they said a woman's head on a cat body. And at the last minute, the powers that be, decided, no, we can't have that. And that's when they put the other head on the Sphinx. And it's too small for the body.
Yes, it is. That is correct.
That's the story that I had. It makes you wonder. They said there was a temple right near there that no longer there is where the cat women had their ceremonies. But it was a very positive group. So who knows? There may be some more information over there.
Right. No, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, because I did some research on it, and I did as far as I could anyway. But, we have that curiosity, and who knows? There's great possibility of all these things.
Yes, absolutely.
But you go to Egypt a lot, don't you?
Yes, I've been 3 times now, and that was fairly recently, but it just, that place just never gets old. It's really an amazing place, and I don't know how, many people, you can only tell them afterwards that after they have stood, for example, in front of the pyramids or in front of other monuments, what it actually feels like to be there. Because, yes, we use words to describe things and feelings and things like that. However, it's very rarely that you ever find a description or hear someone talk the way what it feels like if or when you stand from the pyramids. And, it's almost a cliche, but it's pretty much indescribable. It's absolutely magnificent, and it's breathtaking.
Well, I have a good friend. I don't know if you know Carol Pate. She's a psychic here in Arkansas, but she goes to Egypt quite a bit, and she worked with the archaeologists over there to discover the tunnels underneath the Sphinx. She's gone down in there at the hidden tunnels, and they said there's supposed to be records down in there. And she's come the closest, I think, to finding these things. She's found hidden doors down underneath the Sphinx.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever gone down in there?
It's really interesting that there are some ancient astronaut books that have been written in the 60s and in the 70s proclaiming that there is an entire system of tunnels and possibly a hall of records underneath the Giza Plateau. And it was about a year or 2 ago that the Supreme Council of Antiquities, they actually released a press statement stating that yes, there is in fact an entire tunnel system underneath the Giza Plateau. So all these stories, all these ideas that have been around for so many years are now finally being corroborated by official reports. And, official reports, if an official report is made today, doesn't mean that the officials found out about it today. It's just that they decided to release the information today. But many of these pieces of information have been known amongst inner circles for decades. And so we're definitely living in very exciting times.
Very exciting times.
Because that was what Carol said, that the official archaeologists over there don't want to admit these things, but that the other people do know that these things do exist.
Sure. No,
so
absolutely.
There's a lot of mysteries out there, much more than people think there is. But, well, I'm trying to think, you have been all over the world to all these sites, haven't you?
Pretty much. The only few places that I have not yet been, but they're definitely on my list, is Japan and China, and a few other countries. But anywhere where there is something to be said about, ancient aliens, with big structures, I've been there, and I've definitely investigated these areas with my own eyes. And therein lies the difference, that I'm not what you would consider an armchair researcher. I like to go out there. I like to go and photograph the things and measure the objects, have a look at them, look at the terrain around where these monuments have been built and things like this, and ask the local population about their ideas of how these places came into being and things like that. And so, that is, to me, is the most exciting part of what I do, to be able to go out there and investigate these items or these objects and monuments firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Because, I love research. I mean, that's one thing. I always say I research my books to death. I want to find out everything about them. I have only been to a few of these places. I haven't been to Egypt yet. We're thinking about doing it. We're making plans.
I'm going in September. Where do I need to go, Giorgio?
Go, definitely the Giza Plateau. I mean, there's no question about that. But then,
I think that's where I'm going, is Giza. So
that's where the Sphinx and the...
Go to Abydos.
Yeah, that's right, because what I'm
Dendera.
saying, the view from the window is the Sphinx. It's right next to the Sphinx. So.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful. No, that's fantastic.
But that's one place I haven't gone yet.
And it's great that you're going in September, because Egypt is despite what anyone says, it's a very safe place, and you'll have a fantastic time.
Wonderful. I can't wait.
Because I've been to other places that I've written about, and I always wanted to go and see, do these places exist? So I'm always looking for answers, too. Mm-hmm. But, of course, in China now, you've heard of the pyramids in China, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
They haven't been discovered too long ago.
My colleague, Hartwig Hausdorff, he was actually in China on a couple of occasions reporting about the White Pyramids and things like this. And I'm actually currently working on my next issue of Legendary Times, and the next issue that goes to press in about a month or two will be completely about ancient China. It'll be good. About, we'll also report the latest about the Bayan Karaula discs, and, look at an area called the Baigong Mountains, where they found this mountain with metal or iron pipes that were drilled into the mountainside. Very interesting. I mean, completely, unnatural and definitely artificial in origin. And the Chinese officials actually call that whole area around the Baigong River that this is the extraterrestrial mountain. And
goodness.
So, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. But the discs you were talking about, are those the stone discs that they found in that cave that was supposed to be recordings?
Yes, absolutely. They're sometimes also referred as the Dropa stones. And the reason why they're called Dropa is because apparently there is a race of extraterrestrials that has crashed in the mountains of China somewhere, and they're known as the Dropa. And they're very short people with very spindly bodies and big heads. And if those stories are to be believed, they are still alive today. Now, no one has actually made it or has been successful in going in the area of where these Dropa allegedly have crashed, because about 6 months afterwards, that whole area has been seized by the military, and it's a no-go zone.
Mm.
Well,
so is that your challenge to get in there?
No way.
well,
I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy.
It happened, so many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years ago that maybe they had interbred by now.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, that is one of the basic tenets of the ancient astronaut theory anyway, that, we're all extraterrestrial hybrids because we're part human.
That's
and
what my
part
books are
extraterrestrial.
about, the seeding of the planet Earth,
Yes.
But, I wrote the book, The Legend of Star Crash, and it was supposed to be about the beginning of the Indian races. That goes back to a spacecraft that crashed in the Canadian Alaska region long before the Eskimos, at the time of the Aborigines, and that was where the Indian races came from. And when I went to Alaska and was lecturing up there, they told me, the Eskimos said, this is part of our legends. And I said, wow, I'm getting verification on something that I wasn't sure if was true or not. So, I have the excitement, too, of the exploring, even though I don't go where you go.
No, we need to get you to Egypt, Dolores, and you know what? I think I have a feeling that in the next year or two,
we're going to get her there next
Egypt.
year. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about it, but I've got so many places I'm going to, but that's one I've always wanted.
Yeah, no, next year you will be in Egypt. So.
Well, you're talking about it anyway.
Yeah. We're going to make it happen.
Okay. Well, you've been to Stonehenge, I know, probably many times, haven't you?
Yes, I have, and what's really interesting to me is, and I've had a similar conversation with many people who have been there. It's interesting when you go there. You have this one image in your head when you go there, and then when you finally get there, it supersedes your expectation. And that is, Stonehenge is one of those places, and it's truly amazing because, one of the things that nobody talks about is that if you look at Stonehenge from a bird's eye perspective, when you're above Stonehenge and you look straight down, you see all these concentric circles. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that this one astronomer I think it was in the 70s, I think his name was Tompkins, he found out, or he determined, that Stonehenge is a model of our solar system. And, that's pretty amazing that, the ancients knew things about astronomy that they allegedly weren't supposed to know, yet here we have all these different ancient monuments that are perfect replicas of the solar system and things like this worldwide, or are, directed towards certain constellations up in the sky. And the only thing that mainstream archaeology can say is that all of that is coincidence. And after a while, even coincidence no longer makes sense.
Pyramid that points right at the Orion constellation.
Yes, exactly. And that is absolutely... It's sensational because, and what's really interesting and what you're referring to is the research of Robert Bauval, and he essentially determined, because if you look at the pyramids on the Giza Plateau from a bird's eye perspective, you'll see that the three pyramids, two line up perfectly, but the smallest one is a little bit off. And he's like, that's very odd. And so he decided, or he thought that, this looks very much like Orion's belt. And of course, he didn't just come up with this out of, thin air, but, there was research behind this. And he said that if you were to put a huge light beam on top of each pyramid and shoot it straight up, you can basically today use these modern-day computer programs where you can rewind the night sky over thousands of years. And he determined that the time when the night sky would actually line up perfectly with Orion's belt, that was around 12,500 BC, that the Egyptians referred to as the Golden Age. And so that is what we think, that the pyramids were in fact built no later than 12,500 BC ago, which was around the last ice age, and that is in complete opposition of accepted doctrine at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But, the pyramids, they prove it because...
I've done so much research, too. Do you think the pyramids and all of that came after Atlantis or before?
That I don't know. The only thing that I do know is that the pyramids were built in order to preserve knowledge, because there is one book, one ancient Egyptian text called Al-Hitat, and that's A-L and then dash H-I-T-A-T, and in it is written that the pyramids were built by King Saurit, S-A-U-R-I-T, and his people, because when the guardians of the sky, or the teachers from heaven, still lived amongst men, they selected this one guy, King Saurit, and they taught him how to write, to speak in their language, and so on and so forth. And they essentially dictated 300 sacred or secret books to him. And after he was done with this project, one day he met with the gods, lowercase g, and they were all very somber, and he said, "What's going on? Why are you so sad?" And they said, "Well, because most of mankind will be eradicated in the next few weeks because of a great, incredible flood that's about to befall all of the world." And he said, "Well, how about if we were to build a waterproof building in which we can hide this knowledge so that whoever survives wouldn't have to start from scratch." And then, and that's what, and I'm quoting the text, it says, and then King Saurit and his people built the pyramids with the assistance of the guardians of the sky. And so right there we have textual reference that the pyramids were built by human beings, but with extraterrestrial technology. And all of a sudden, the whole story makes a lot of sense.
And also in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Very short period of time, yes.
And most certainly, in my work, too, that the legends of the gods were nothing more than extraterrestrials living among the people, trying to educate them and give them civilization.
Yes.
Because they lived as long as they could, they wanted to, they were treated as gods.
Right, exactly, and that is the exact point. That if Michio Kaku, the eminent astrophysicist, has a very interesting point by saying that if we were to appear in front of our ancestors, but only about 5 generations removed, meaning in the 1850s, we would appear to them like gods, because we have computers, we have laptops, we have iPhones and iPads and things like that. Exactly. And so that is exactly what happened here on Earth 5,000 years ago, where these flesh and blood extraterrestrials were completely and utterly mistaken and misinterpreted as gods, as these divine beings, which they never were. I mean, they were just, space explorers. And here we are today. We've got religion and all sorts of crazy stuff that all emerged because of a misunderstood extraterrestrial visit.
Yeah. But what God, too, is that, every culture in the world has the legends of the culture bringers. Somebody who came and showed them how to do things. The Indians with their corn woman, and the people who taught them how to have fire and how to hunt, and that these were actually extraterrestrials. The culture
No, that's
bringers.
very funny that you should, or not funny, but interesting that you should mention the corn woman. And, it's interesting to see that, modern-day geneticists, they have a problem determining the origin of corn or potato. And, some people have suggested, including me, that, corn and many other plants, including the potato, they're in mythology, those plants are referred to the plants of the gods, that they were some type of gifts that were brought here by extraterrestrials for agriculture in the remote past. But of course, if you talk about something like this, people shake their heads, but that's all right.
Yeah, but I mean, I've accepted it. I've written 4 books on it, so we're on the same page. I believe it,
right.
that it was all brought and introduced. And so, I think it makes so much sense. I don't know how anybody can argue about these things.
Yes, no, I agree with that. Absolutely.
Uh-huh. Oh, boy. But, well, Julie just came back from Stonehenge. She was there this last week.
I was there actually a week ago today.
Okay.
And I was there, yeah.
Did you have a good time?
I had a great time, yes.
But Avebury, too,
well, I was at Stonehenge. We went to Avebury, and then I got to go see the very first crop circle of the season. So I got to lay in a crop circle.
Oh, wonderful. Fantastic.
But, Avebury, they say, has more stones, really, than Stonehenge. But it was destroyed. They made those roads. The Romans made the roads going through Avebury to destroy the power of the circle.
Isn't that horrible? How many ancient sites that we don't even know where they are or how or if they ever existed, because they possibly destroyed by previous cultures. I mean, half of Cairo has pyramid stones within their buildings. I mean, it's really sad.
Well, exactly. That's like Avebury. As they said, they were destroying some of the stones and they were putting them into the farmhouses. So those farmhouses are still there because they have those stones in them.
Yeah.
But a lot of them they were just destroying because they thought they were devil stones and things, and so they just,
But if you remember in Cusco, they had that big Catholic church, and it was built over this what it would have been an Inca. It wasn't really, their Incas were newcomers, but it was supposed to be an ancient temple or something, and they built it, the church over it because they had to hide it.
Absolutely.
And then a lot of the churches in the world were built on these ancient vortex sites.
Right. I mean, most of, if not all, of today's churches or any type of holy places have all been built on even more ancient sacred sites or pagan ritual sites. And the temple or the church that you're referring to in Cusco, for example, is known as the Coricancha, or the Temple of the Sun. And that was most certainly a pre-Inca construction and not an Inca construction. Of course, the Inca stumbled upon it and they used it, but many of Peru's monuments are all pre-Inca. And still today, archaeologists, and I find it absolutely wonderful, they do not agree with one another who the heck these pre-Inca, who this pre-Inca culture was, because they were so sophisticated in their construction technology that, like I said at the outset of this interview, that we would have great difficulty trying to recreate some of those monuments that the pre-Inca culture, whoever they were, built thousands of years ago.
Well, you probably heard the story of how the temple was discovered. They had an earthquake, and the earthquake destroyed part of the church.
Yes.
And they found the temple within the church, and a lot of the people at this time didn't even know it was built around it.
Right, yes, and
so
there are a couple of tunnel entrances and things like that, so very fascinating, absolutely.
Uh-huh. But, I don't know, this is, to me, it's such a fascinating subject, and I'm very much into it, too.
I can tell, and I'm really having a blast talking to you about it because...
Well, we're on the same page because I believe in it. I've done a lot of research into it.
Yeah, and you've been there.
Yeah, you've been there. I've been to some of these places, so I can say I've seen them, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
We will complement each other. It's,
But see, that's the idea. We can say we know it's real because we've seen it.
Exactly.
And it's not just going by internet imaginings or all these pictures they come up with. I've seen so many fake pictures of UFOs, and because we have been there and we've seen it and we've investigated. And that's where you've got to go there yourself, and then you know it's real.
Exactly.
That's
and
the
until
main
that,
thing.
and that's why it never hurt, and it will never hurt to open a book and read, because the internet can only do so much. That's what the young kids don't understand these days, and I'm sorry to say that. No, I'm actually not sorry to say that, but kids, if you're listening, open a book. Read.
This is what I tell
text.
people now. I said the kids nowadays don't have any idea of what real research is. Because when I was doing my books, I would spend all day in a real library going over all these books and having books shipped in from the Library of Congress, one copy in existence, reading, and I spend all day found one little piece of information I could use. These kids today have no idea what real research is. They just check it out on the internet, and they think that's all there is.
Right, and there's great stuff on there, but if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty, then there is no way that you can do this stuff without cross-referencing the old texts and, going to an actual library and, look at these items yourself in front of, with your own eyes.
Go to the oldest books you can find. That's what I had to do.
Well, I think it's always that, it doesn't matter if it's a book or if it's a statue or if anything that you investigate that has to do with the ancient past is you should always consult the earliest sources that you can get your hands on, because the further you go back in time, the closer you are to the truth, because over time everything changes, everything gets embellished, things are added to the story. But if the beginning of the time, or at the beginning of a particular story, if you look at the way the story is described, let's say 1,000 years ago, and then you look at the same story only 500 years later, there are sometimes huge discrepancies. So I always suggest to people, the further you go back in time with your investigations, the closer you are, quote-unquote, truth.
Yeah, that's what I've found, and I've read so many books that I know were just somebody reading somebody else's book. There was nothing original in there. Well, Giorgio, we're running out of time again. Look how fast the hour went.
Yeah, time flies when you have a good time.
Do you have any particular subject you're going to talk about? Because you can talk about anything, really.
Well, my lecture will be on Saturday night, and not tomorrow, but a week from now. And it'll be about the latest findings in the ancient astronaut field. It'll be an hour and a half with a PowerPoint presentation, and it'll be a little roller coaster ride around the world. And I hope that all of our listeners will come, and I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you guys. And I'm really looking forward to meet Steve Wallace as well.
On that roller coaster.
And you're going to you have 2 hours, really, because part of that is Q&A. It's questions from the audience, and they can always go anywhere.
Right. Oh, okay, great. Well, in that case, no, definitely. I mean, the Q&A I thought was included in the 2 hours.
Oh, no.
That's why I was only going to talk about 90 minutes.
It's included in the 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, in the 2 hours. We try to put it on the end, and, we see where you go. That gives you more time then. But the Q&A can go in many different directions. Yeah. But tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want to.
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is through my website, which is legendarytimes.com. And then also I am on Facebook, facebook.com/Giorgio Tsoukalos fans. And, both websites I announce my appearances and things like that. And I've just made an announcement on Facebook that I'll be speaking at your conference next week, Dolores, wonderful. And everyone is excited. And, so it'll be a good time.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about your TV show? Where is that being shown?
That is shown on the History Channel. And, basically, just check your local listings, and Season 1 and Season 2 are currently on reruns, and Season 3... say again, please?
What's the show called, so they know what to look
it's called Ancient Aliens. The show is called Ancient Aliens, and we are filming right now Season 3, which will air later this year in a few months. And, so we're all rolling along here, and it's all very exciting.
And you're not going to run out of material, that's for sure.
No, both you and I know that. We'll never run out of material. The only time we'll run out of material is if the extraterrestrials show up and say, hello, here we are.
Yeah, but I don't even know if they'll believe that, really.
I like that. I agree with you, actually, yes.
So, Giorgio, we're really looking forward to seeing you next week. And I think you're coming in on Friday, I believe, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you'll be there all day so you can talk to people, and I think you're going to bring things to sell.
Yeah, no, I'll bring a few magazines and things like that, and but I'm mainly just looking forward to hang out with the people there and have a wonderful conversation with everyone.
Okay. So anyway, everybody wants to know more about the conference. You can go on our website. We have all of the speakers listed. And I started this conference as a showcase for my new authors that our company publishes so they can get a chance to speak for the first time. So we had a lot of speakers. But if you want to know more about the conference, check out the website. And it's www.ozarkmountain. It's abbreviated, OZARKMT.com, or you can just type in DoloresCannon.com, and either one will get you there. The details about the conference, where it's at, and everything. And we're really looking forward for an exciting weekend next week.
Absolutely. Can't wait to meet you, Giorgio.
Same here, guys. I really appreciate having been on the program.
And thanks for coming. It's a great honor.
Absolutely, and I will see you next
week.
week.
We're looking forward to seeing anybody out there who's listening who wants to come. It's going to be a great conference.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, good night, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Good night.
If you enjoyed the show, check out more of our other videos, and be sure to subscribe and click the like button. Thank you for listening to the Metaphysical Hour with Dolores Cannon.